We're moving right along to Unit 12, and this is Lesson 1. We are now adding and subtracting polynomials. Very excited about this. I love this unit, as you can tell from all the exclamation points. So here's your objective, and let's go ahead and get started with these. First is some stuff you need to know about polynomials, okay? So here's a polynomial in standard form. Polynomials always go in standard form. Okay, and what that means is right here. Standard form means that the degrees are placed in descending order. And I put this little picture on here just because I found it on Google one day and decided it was kind of cool. So this little Gila monster, or whatever he is, says he likes his polynomials in standard form right before he attacks this squirrel. But they're going to be best friends because they both are going to find out that they love polynomials. Okay, this is a polynomial right here. So you've got multiple terms that are added together. That's what polynomial means. Okay, so we got more than one term that are added together. And the leading coefficient of a polynomial is the very first coefficient. Remember, a coefficient is the first number in a term. So 2 is the coefficient for 2x cubed. 5 is the coefficient for 5x squared. But the leading coefficient is the coefficient of the highest degree. Okay, and what a degree is degree just means that's the highest exponent that we have for a variable. Okay, so the highest degree in this is 3. This polynomial's degree is 3 because the highest x value is 3. It's also got a 2 and a 1, and then there's no x here. Okay, but again, the highest variable value or variable exponent is the degree. And then, of course, just a reminder, this is a constant. It's a constant because there's no variable on the end. So again, review of that. Polynomial is multiple terms added together. Okay, now obviously there's a subtraction sign here, but we can always change that to addition. Okay, so again, multiple terms added together. That's a polynomial. And the leading coefficient is the coefficient of the highest degree. Okay, so and again, degree is the highest exponent. So this polynomial has a degree of 3. Okay, and last thing again, standard form means the polynomials or the degrees are placed in descending order. So we go x cubed, x squared, x to the first, and then no x. Okay, or x to the 0. So they're going in descending order, getting smaller in standard form. And the reason why we like them in standard form is because it makes it easier to work with. It makes it easier to tell what is the degree of the polynomial. Okay, for example, what is the leading coefficient? Because without rearranging them, then you have to look through it, sort through it a lot more. Alright, so let's go to some more examples, and we're going to be adding and subtracting these for this lesson. Okay, we've got our little lizard and our squirrel back. Okay, remembering that we need to make our polynomial in standard form. Okay, so in decreasing order by the degrees. And this squirrel says, remember to account for all the degrees. Okay, so what that means is make sure that we account for every single exponent value. Okay, so for example, identify the coefficients of this polynomial right here. So first thing we want to do is put it in standard form. Okay, so our cubed will come first, and it's positive, and I'm going to go ahead and rewrite that as 1x cubed. Okay, plus, then we've got a squared value, which would come next, so it's negative 4x squared. Plus, so I've used this one and that one. Now the only thing I have left is 3. However, this says account for all the degrees. When we write a polynomial, you need to account for every single degree. So this is a degree of 3, this is a degree of 2, so now I need a degree of 1, which means just an x value. Well, I have no x's here, so I'm going to go ahead and just write 0x. Okay? So now I've accounted for a degree of 1 here. I've got a degree of 3, a degree of 2, and a degree of 1, and I wrote that in there again, even though there were no x's, because we need to account for that degree. Plus, and then my constant has a degree of 0 because there's no variable. Okay, so we got a polynomial here accounting for all the degrees. It says identify the coefficients. Okay, so my coefficients in this case are 1, and that's the leading coefficient, negative 4, 0, and 3. Okay, and so we had to account for this one, okay, to account for all the degrees. So there's our coefficients. The numbers out in front. Alright, let's keep on moving on. Okay, more about polynomials here. We have different types of polynomials. Okay, we talked about degrees, meaning what's the highest exponent and that kind of stuff. Okay, now we need to talk about different types. Okay, a polynomial with one term is called a monomial. Okay, so a monomial might look like this, 3x squared. Okay, or it could be something like x. Okay, because again, we have one term, which means we're not adding things together. There's only one thing there. That's a monomial. Okay? A binomial is a polynomial with two terms. All right? So that could be like 3x squared plus x is a binomial. Or we could have something like x plus 3. So again, remember, terms are things that are added together. So these have one term because there's nothing being added together. These have two terms because we have two things added together in each one. So these are both binomials. A trinomial has three terms, so it might be 3x squared plus x plus 3. And then anything after that is just called a polynomial. Okay? So we can have four terms added together or five terms added together. So it could be like 4x to the fifth plus 3x to the fourth plus negative 2, fourth, plus negative 2x cubed plus negative 3x squared, and so on and so on and so on. Okay, but polynomial is any amount of terms. Okay, there's no special words once we get past 4. So monomial, one term, binomial, two terms added, and trinomial, three terms added together. Anything else is a polynomial. Oh, and by the way, mono means one, okay, and it also means monkey in Spanish. So that's why the picture of the monkey right here. Okay, so mono means one, bi means two, tri means three. All right, and the next slide. So now we're going to classify polynomials, okay? And we classify polynomials in two different ways. We can classify them by degrees and by number of terms, and we've learned, okay, part of both of those already. So first thing I want to do here is identify the degree of each one. Again, the degree is the highest exponent value that we have for a variable. Okay, well this one has no variable, it's a constant, so that's a degree of 0. Okay, when something has a degree of 0 and we classify it by degree, it's called a constant. Okay, so again, degree of 0 means it's a constant. And if we classify this polynomial by the number of terms, there's only one term, and we just learned the name for that. That's a monomial. So this is a constant monomial. Degree of 0, one term. Okay, this one right here. This one has a degree of 1. Okay, that means it's got a variable value, but the variable has no exponent. Okay, because we really could put a 1 right here. Alright, so degree of 0 means no variable. Degree of 1 means a variable with no exponent on it. And classified by degree, if it's got a degree of 1, that is called linear. Okay, and that's because when you graph it, it would make a straight line. Okay, and we've learned about those. We've graphed straight lines before, and we would know that if we put like y equals negative 2x, that should make a straight line. So a degree of 1 is linear. And by terms, well, there's still only one term, because there's nothing added together, so it's a monomial. So that is a linear monomial. Okay, this polynomial, again, degree, well, the highest variable, or the highest exponent of a variable value is still 1. Now that is classified by degree. It's still linear because the highest exponent is for the variables is 1. And then there's two terms added together, and we covered that. That is called a binomial. So this is what a linear binomial looks like. And again, we could graph that. Y equals 3x plus 1, and it would be a straight line. Okay, now this one right here has a degree of 2 because when we look at our x values, our variable values, the highest exponent is 2. And we classify that by degree. We just spent a whole unit on these. You guys remember what those were called when we got a squared value? That's called a quadratic. Okay? And if we classify it by number of terms, there's 1, 2, 3, so that's a trinomial. And we just did a lot of stuff with quadratic trinomials, solving them using the quadratic formula and so on. Okay. Okay? So again, classifying by degree, tell me the degree, the number of the degree, and then tell me what the name of it is as well. And classifying by number of terms means tell me by number of terms, monomial, binomial, trinomial, so on. Okay, this one right here, this one has a degree of 3 because we got an x and an x cubed. Okay, once we have a degree of 3, that's called cubic. Okay, because exponent to the third power means cubed. And this has 2 terms, so it's a binomial. And the last one, okay, the degree, well, we've got a 0 here, 1 here, 3 here, 4 here, so the highest degree is 4. And that's called quartic. And since there's 1, 2, 3, 4 terms, that's just called a polynomial. So this is classifying by degree and by number of terms. So when it says that in your book, that's what we want, okay, by degree and number of terms. Now once we get past 4 here, if it's like to the 5th degree, then you just put the number for the degree, okay? Alright, now let's go on to finally adding and subtracting these things.